In the last section, we spoke about why we saw that error message about the window variable. Remember, this file right here gets executed 2 times, one time on the server to initially render our application, and then a second time inside the browser. When it is executed on the server, the window global variable is not defined, and that's why we see the message that says window is undefined. So in this video, we're going to do a little cleanup to this file, and we're going to make sure that this code can safely be executed on either the server or the browser. Now, explaining exactly what we're going to write here ahead of time is a little bit complicated. So we're going to first write out some code, and then it'll be a lot more obvious what we're going to try to do. I'm going to take this line of code that we already wrote, and I'm just going to delete the entire thing. We're going to rewrite it in just a second, but honestly, it's easier to just start off with a blank slate. I'm going to replace that with one variable declaration. I'm going to say let web3, like so. Remember, whenever we use the let keyword, it means that we want to be able to reassign this variable. Right underneath the let keyword, or that variable declaration, we're going to set up an if statement. We're going to do a little bit of comparisons with this if statement, and then depending upon which branch we enter into, we're going to assign a slightly different value to web3. So we're going to say if, I'm going to just kind of write out the statement first. And we'll talk about what each of these considerations are for. This first if statement right here, or the first kind of catch case right here, is going to handle the case in which our code is being executed inside the browser and MetaMask is available. So inside this if statement, we're going to do a check to see if we are running in the browser. To see if we're running in the browser, we're going to use a little bit of a trick here. So we're going to say type of window and then does not equal undefined. So in case you're a little bit newer to JavaScript, or you just haven't used type of a whole bunch, we can use the type of operator to see if a variable is defined. We're saying type of window. If window is defined and we are running this code inside the browser, we should see the string return from this of object. And as a matter of fact, we can flip over to the browser right now and test that out. So over inside the browser, if I open up my console, I can write, and let's get the font just a little bit bigger, I can write type of window. And when I execute that, I get back the string object. However, if I execute the same line of code inside of the Node.js runtime, I'll get back a string that says undefined. And we can very easily test that as well. If I flip on over to my terminal and enter the Node.js REPL by running the command node like so, this gives me access to a Node.js command line. Inside of here, I can freely write out some amount of JavaScript. And so over here, if I write out type of window, I get back the string undefined. So essentially, by saying type of window, we can very easily check to see if we are running code on the server or on the browser. All right, so back over here, this is checking to see if we are on the server or the browser. If type of window does not return undefined, notice how we are checking to see if it is not undefined, then that must mean we are in the browser. Now the second thing we're going to do inside of here is check to see if the user is running MetaMask. If the user is running MetaMask, then it should have already injected a copy of Web3 on the window variable. So we can check for that in a very similar fashion. We can say and if window.web3, and we'll do the same type of thing here. So we're going to say type of window.web3 is not equal to undefined. So first we check to see if we are in the browser, and then we check to see if MetaMask has already injected Web3. So if we end up in this branch of the if statement right here, then we can say that we are in the browser and MetaMask is running. So in that case, we want to run the same code that we had in this file before. In that case, we want to hijack MetaMask's current provider and use it to create our own instance of Web3. And then we will assign that to this Web3 variable that we defined out here. So in total, we're going to write out Web3 is new capital Web3. Remember, this is our constructor right here. then we'll take the copy of MetaMask, or excuse me, the copy of Web3 that was injected by MetaMask. A lot of just crazy terminology here. So we're going to say window, Web3, current provider, just like we did before. So hijack that thing's copy of, or hijack that thing's provider and use it to create our own instance of Web3. And just as a reminder, you'll recall that we are doing all this right here so that we know that we are always using the same version of Web3. If we relied upon the copy of Web3 that is injected into the browser by MetaMask, we might be using like version 0.1 or version 0.20 or version 1 or who knows what, right? We don't know what version is being injected by MetaMask. We could always check, right? We could check, but hey, if it ends up being the wrong version, well, then we're up a creek anyways. So no matter what, we're going to try to create our own copy of Web3 and assign it to this variable. Now in the else, we need to handle the other case. So this is going to handle the case in which we are on the browser or the user is not running MetaMask. In this case, we're going to do things a little bit differently. To handle this case, we're going to set up our own provider that connects to the Rinkeby test network through Infura. And you'll recall we've been using Infura quite a bit throughout this course to access the Rinkeby test network for our deployment script. So we're going to set up our own provider that works through Infura and then use that as the provider for our Web3 instance. And again, this is taking care of the case in which, and you know what, I just realized I made a typo here. I said we are on the browser, we are on the server, my mistake. So this is going to handle the case in which we are on the server or the user is not running MetaMask. Okay, so to create our own provider, we can say const provider is going to be new capital W Web3 dot providers dot HTTP provider, like so. So this is how we make our own provider. We call this function, and then we have to pass in the URL of some remote node that we have access to. So we're going to pass in the URL to the Infura node that we already signed up for previously. If you don't have that URL handy, that's totally fine. We actually already have a copy of that URL inside of our deploy.js file. So if we open up deploy.js, right here is the URL that we need. So this will allow us to connect to the Infura network, or connect to the Rinkeby network through Infura, and this is our access key. You might be thinking, wait a minute, Stephen, we're going to let everyone in the world have access to the access key right here? Well, remember, right now, Infura is not used for storing any account information. It is solely used as a portal to access the Ethereum network. So right now, totally fine to share this key around, especially since it is free and you didn't pay any money to get it anyways. So no big deal. All right, we're going to copy this entire URL and we're going to paste it inside of here, giving it to our provider. So now we're making our own provider that is accessing the network through this URL. And then the last thing we have to do is to create our own instance of Web3 once again. So we're going to say Web3 is going to be new capital Web3, and we're going to pass in the provider that we just made. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So we're now handling the case in which we are in the browser and MetaMask is running. We're also handling the case in which we are on the server or the case in which we are on the browser and the user does not have MetaMask. Hopefully now the reason that we did this initial assignment of, or this initialization of Web3 up here makes a little bit more sense. So we're defining Web3 out here. We then define it one way or the other. And then by the time we get to the export default statement, Web3 is holding an instance of Web3, either way. All right, let's save this file and we're going to flip back over to the browser and see how we're doing. So back over here, it looks like we've now got our page being rendered. So I see the text up here, campaigns index. That looks good to me. However, if you have your console over here open, you might see a message that says campaigns is not defined. So chances are we have a little bit of a typo inside of our index file back over here. And you know what? I just saw it. Here it is right here. So we are taking our list of campaigns and assigning it to the variable campaign. So let's fix that typo really quickly. It should definitely be campaigns on both of them. Let's save this again and try testing one more time. So I'm going to refresh the page. And okay, so we don't have anything appearing on the screen, but we do have our address appearing down here inside the console. So this is the console log that we had just added. And this is the address of the campaign that we just deployed from Remix. So it looks like everything is working out pretty well so far. So let's pause right here. We'll continue in the next video, and we're going to make some changes to our component to get that address to appear on the screen. So I'll see you in just a minute.